This episode of Important If True is brought to you by Quip. Electric toothbrushes sent to your home with brush head refills every 3 months. And if you go to tryquip.com/thumbs, you can get $10 off your first brush head refill. That's tryquip.com/thumbs. So, Nick, you are going to open with a Landis update. And
Landis update.
Pod Dad, Chris Ramo. Son? Yeah. We're recording now. It's June 8th, 2017.
And this is Important If True.
from Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
And I'm Jake Rodkin. You're running out of sort of normal ways to say that. You're
sorry.
Really, yeah.
Backed yourself into a corner of your own creation.
I know. I'm at the end.
No.
No?
The end of the corner of your own creation.
Well, yeah.
From the makers of The Neverending Story. A new terrifying children's film. That movie fucking freaked me out when I was like whatever single-digit tiny age I was when I saw it, and I had to be taken out of the theater.
What specifically terrified you?
I don't know. I think the whole thing...
Just creepy puppets.
Yeah, just... I feel like
lots
80s,
of sheer fabric sort of wisping around.
Yeah, a lot of 80s children's movies, a lot of live-action 80s children's movies, or puppeted 80s children's films, or combination, had just this, like, really dark vibe over them that it still holds true, I think, even watch them now. We watched, were you at the theater when we watched Neverending Story?
I can't remember.
A few years
May
ago?
have been,
It was
yeah.
like 3 or 4 years ago maybe we saw it. But there's this veneer of sort of dismalness over it that I don't think you would have in a Hollywood kids movie now.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah. Freaked me out when I was a kid. I had to leave.
A lot of fog around, a lot of flying dogs.
Yeah.
I think that they took more from sort of the Grimm's fairy tale aesthetic than the Disney version, which has totally taken over that
that's
style
true.
at this point.
Yeah. Unrelated, Nick.
Yeah.
I believe you have a Landis update.
I do.
This was the...
yeah, we should...
You should contextualize that.
Landis is the hairdresser that Nick and I both go to. She told me this incredibly long and involved story about that, culminated in poo that I retold on this podcast. It turned out, as I learned while recording this podcast, that Nick, you had in fact told that story to Landis.
Yeah.
She had retold it to me without telling me that you were the source. So I was fully hoisted, but then we were further collectively hoisted when we learned that this story is in fact a larger urban legend that has been passed around person to person for I think about a decade now or more.
Hundreds of years.
Hundreds of years.
This is the first story.
Yeah.
All stories really are like, you've got man versus man versus the unknown, woman scoops poop out of a toilet.
Leaves in room and locks door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Classic Shakespeare.
Primal stories that have been with us.
Yeah.
So you have an update from Landis. You confronted her with this information, I assume.
Yeah, well, I went to get my haircut, and I walked in the door just kind of full, like just full of information and just ready to explode.
Yeah.
And I sat down, and I just said, like, I just blurted everything out all at once. I was like, oh man, I told the poop story. Like, Chris told the poop story, and then you, and then the thing, and then it turns out it's actually fake. Just like, I could just see her like eyes slowly expanding.
Yeah.
And she was like, wait, what? Oh my God. And then for 10, 15 minutes, like nothing, no hair was cut. Like nothing actually
Just
occurred.
stunned silence?
It was just just complete stunned silence. And then her family walked in.
Oh, weird.
And like her brother was just randomly in town, and she's like, "Oh, hey, this is Nick. I'm sorry, I'm completely thinking about something else right now." And then she just like stopped talking, and her family was like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "Well, Nick, you tell them. And I was like, okay, so there was this poop thing and the thing, and I have this podcast called Important Truth, and then we do this thing, and we told it, and I was like, oh, okay. And they just looked at me like, why are you? Anyway, we're gonna go get a coffee. And
why would anyone care about any of this?
Just completely.
Wait, what? How did she respond to? The revelation?
It took a while, and finally we started talking about it. She is unsure of whether or not it was me, because I very forcefully said, I'm pretty sure. I mean, Landis, like, I was, sliding the, just putting the elbow across the table, like, it was me, right? It wasn't another client, right? Like, I was the one that told you, right? It's just like, no, I think it was a blonde lady. I think it was a client. It was another client. I think I know who it is. So she thinks she knows who it was who originally told her, but she has a very strong memory that whoever that person is, much like the person who told me, much like the person who told me originally, who completely sold this story as their own, she thinks the same thing occurred. That this person actually, she's like, no, she said that the client, she's like, no, the client told me that it was her sister's coworker for sure. There's no way that it wasn't. So she thinks,
why is it always someone's coworker's relative? Like, I feel
it
like
is a very specific setup.
It's a really specifically untraceable thing, because if you need to go verify that, it's like, oh, I mean, I don't work with them anymore, and like,
right,
I don't know.
exactly.
Like, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So she's convinced she's going to do some detective work. She's going to talk to this client and ask them what the hell happened, because she thinks it was like a year ago.
Man, so can we have a story later brought to us by our producer Landis
from the field?
Yeah.
So she denies that she heard the story from you? Did she twice hear this story?
I think she's unsure. She probably twice heard the story.
But you're very confident that you
I am
told
100% confident I told her that story, and probably in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
How many people can we find who need a haircut, who will very aesthetically and culturally have no relation to you guys, who can tell Landis this story?
God, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing I'm excited about is the idea that if it was me and she thinks this other person told her the story, that she now has to explain all of this shit to that client. Like, my other client has this podcast where they told this poop story. Oh, here's the poop story. Like, it's just...
Oh, that's a common urban legend about the person with the podcast who gets told a poop story?
Exactly, yeah.
You can't...
Well, the best reveal, though, will be if she's like, oh, well, it was from when I worked at Bethesda Software.
So that's where it stands.
Yeah.
She's doing detective work. I need to do some detective work on my end. We'll have another update.
Right.
Get back to you, boss.
If we could somehow orchestrate a weird communal, I don't know, sort of slow motion, what is that thing where that used to be really popular in
journalism,
the internet, where people would like get in a group and do something.
Witch hunt. Like, what are you talking about?
It's like when people would go and they would, like do something weird in public, and then other people would...
Like a flash mob?
Yeah, like a flash mob.
I
forgot that it had such a stupid name. I wouldn't have even started...
Like a street team!
If I remembered how stupid the word flash mob were, I wouldn't have even started saying this. I'm sorry. Yeah. I would have found a different, better analogy.
Like street team, like critical mass, like a flash mob. Like group improv.
I was just going to say it would be good to find multiple people who we could employ
to put poop in a room.
To actually do what you proposed, which is go get their haircut by Landis.
Yeah.
And it would be a long-term thing. They'd have to get their haircut like 3 times, and then on the 3rd time,
I see,
be like, God, you're not going to believe what happened to my friend. This is amazing.
The funny thing is, she would probably have to go along with it because
it's her job.
It's her job to just be like, oh, really? Oh,
right, instead of like,
she's not gonna be like, you're full of shit. I know that fucking. That is not. Yeah. Anyway.
My client has a podcast.
Right? God, especially if you'd have to get the sort of the deniability down and the sort of credulity up, where where the person's eventually like, this happened to me 2 weeks ago. I was staying at my friend's house and I left. Oh, it was. I feel embarrassed telling you.
Yeah. Like, it's not a one-night stand. It was like I just had to like crash on someone's couch, whatever.
But it's like, a friend from college who I just hadn't seen in a while, but lives in Philadelphia or whatever. Anyway, their toilet backed up. Oh,
Yeah, worst experience of my life. Oh,
and
oof.
she's like, "Nah, that actually is an urban legend from like 15 years ago." Like, what the fuck? Funny story. I read about it on Snopes, but then it really happened to me.
Oh man.
God, that would be.
That's a good lead into an email we have. We have a dream from Darren in Toronto who writes, "Hey Thumbs,
We have a dream from Darren.
an email.
Okay.
Sorry, about dreaming.
We're downloading a dream from Darren's brain.
Well, that's
as we
also
speak.
that's also sort of appropriate to this email." Darren writes, "Hey Thumbs, wonder if you could help me with my dreaming subconscious. For many years now, I have been having dreams that seem to predict events in my life. Sometimes they range from small things like foreshadowing a piece of media I would watch or an old friend I would meet, to a more recent dream which has become the impetus for this email. In this dream, I met an old girlfriend who wanted to marry me. I knew she was engaged to someone else and so asked her, 'What about so-and-so?' She told me it was a long story and it had ended. I woke up and decided to investigate on Facebook and found that, sure enough, she had been engaged to be married early last year but had since broke it off and was now dating someone else. For context, I don't use Facebook often and I don't follow her, so I would not have seen this information to be imbibed into my subconscious. You guys often talk about the dreams you have, and I want to get your opinions on what you think their functions could be. Are they a window to something that could happen? Are they to be interpreted and analyzed like the dreams in Twin Peaks? Or are they simply movies starring you that your mind creates? Thanks for all the casts and bag blasts, Darren in Toronto."
That's happened to me multiple times.
Yeah?
Like, verifiably.
Okay.
What do you mean verifiably?
No, I'm just saying.
I mean, my
It's-
friend's coworker.
No. I mean, like specific details that are that they're not vague. in
But
other
came
words.
true
Like,
specifically?
That came true.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's-
I don't remember exactly the stories, but I know that that's happened to me.
I just remembered that I have
know-
the power to predict the future,
I
but I
do.
can't. I couldn't tell you any examples.
You know,
I had this.
it's not a science.
I had a dream
It's
that you
an
were
art.
full of shit on a podcast.
Well, we'll see if that comes true.
I mean, it has.
It has.
It has.
Yeah, you're
It has
just,
and will
you're
come
just
true.
reading history right now.
There's some angry CRISPR scientists who can verify that this dream, that dream came true.
Yeah, I mean, what I want to know is other dreams this person has that could have potentially come true.
Well, I want to know. So when you say that is eerily prescient, do you not consider it notable that this person did not, in fact, ask him to marry her? Like that is.
Oh,
the
that's true. There's some gap
premise
filling
of the
there where it's
dream.
like my
yeah.
dream was that you asked me to marry you, and then I looked, and you called off your engagement.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
but the story is actually that
And have a new boyfriend.
no, yeah, she has a new boyfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's not the circumstance hasn't really
And
changed.
it was me.
Yeah, that
Nick Brecken. Anyway, I told this story to my hairdresser recently. It's totally crazy.
No, you're right. That's fair enough. It's my hope that a new
that relationship fails miserably.
yeah, that they
and then they get
that
together
they
and
find
it's
true
beautiful.
love like his dream. He had a dream that said that they should be in love and marry. Assuming he is the protagonist of Earth, he's gonna get married to that lady. Whereas I just hope that my like Ben Stiller French Stewart meme that's in a bunch of movies really shows up in the next
What
couple
was
of
that
years.
again?
I can't even remember the details of that. I had a dream.
This is a dog, right?
I want a guy who looks like French Stewart but isn't French Stewart, who's maybe dressed in sort of an ambiguous Chewbacca/dog costume where his face is visible, to propose to me.
I mean, I was browsing Facebook recently, and the guy who kind of is French Stewart but is actually a dog recently has ended a relationship.
Oh, wow. I thought you were going to say, I browsed Facebook recently and you're married. But, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
All of my concrete dreams are just depressing wish fulfillment about wrongs that I've committed in my life being righted. It's really bleak.
Like Death Wish or something? What do you mean?
No, I mean,
like vengeance?
like if I got in a huge fight with someone years ago and it was never resolved, every couple of years I'll have a dream that is incredibly specific where I'll like meet that person in a bar or go out for
Oh.
dinner and they'll like shake hands with me and say, it's fine actually. And like I wake up and go, oh, that's just the saddest shit. That's so bleak.
your fantasy is that just you and the rest of humanity is like decent civil people?
Yeah, my fantasy is that yeah.
Sorry, that's not. That's
Sorry, the reason that we're arguing is this is just a bunch of emotional entrenchment and is actually irrational. Let's just not hate on each other for no reason or whatever. Like
Yeah.
this thing, it's dissolved with time.
All of your dreams are somehow related to 90s television. You have the kind of like classic sitcom, like, oh, everything's fine. But then, like, goofy dog guy, ho, ho,
Yep.
da-da-da, and then there's,
Yeah, my dreams
roll
all,
credits.
They all end in a freeze frame and then some yellow text with an executive producer. It's really strange, strangely specific.
Executive produced by Landis.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So the question is actually, are dreams a window to something that could happen, or are they to be interpreted and analyzed like the dreams in Twin Peaks, or are they simply movies starring you that your mind creates? I mean, the answer could be all of the above.
They are all of the above, I think.
And
Yes.
the way that you can make them something that could happen is by strenuously pursuing them at all costs. Like maybe the idea of following your dreams
Oh, no!
is intended as like a literal directive.
I don't know if that. Yeah. Okay. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. You should follow your dreams in a very literal, matter of fact way. Maybe not in the case of I dreamt that a girl that I used to know wanted to marry me, and then I
that's
found
true.
out she called her for
That's-
engagement.
that's
Do
true.
not pursue that dream too aggressively.
Yeah, no, that's true. But Jake, you probably should. Both in terms of reconciling with people with whom you have long simmering but ambiguous arguments, and also in terms of filming that Ben Stiller, Fred Stewart weird meme supercut. Because you would be better off with the former, and the rest of us would be better off with the latter.
That's true. You're right. Then the only one that I'd need to add is a movie starring me, and I would fulfill all three of the dream types.
True.
I mean, this is just sort of very Twin Peaks, isn't it? David Lynch has dreams and then puts them in a TV show not starring him, but like
Man,
that
that's
he is
true.
acting in.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
Oh, also, I should have totally turned to the camera when I said I need to film a movie starring me.
Executive produced by Jake Rodkin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to follow this up with an email I was going to follow up the Landis thing with, but preempted it. And this is an email from Henry in Bristol, UK, who says, "Hi guys, after your hairdresser hoisting a few weeks back, I wanted to pass on a short, sweet, self-hoisting story that
Short, sweet, and self-hoisting.
short, sweet, self-hoisting.
Shoisting.
Shoisting?
So this, I didn't note this sort of opening premise for this story, which immediately, I think, introduces some skepticism, which is that, so my colleague's brother was on...
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Hoisted.
I dreamt my colleague's brother.
So he claims that he checked Snopes, he checked like resources, made sure this wasn't a story that gets passed around. He claims this is only 2 degrees removed. So-
there was a hook on the door of the car.
What
What if you straight up read the exact poop in a bag story verbatim?
Oh, man.
Okay, he says this happens. He checks Snopes. So this woman stayed at a guy's apartment at his really nice house, actually. Excuse me. Sorry, please continue before I
That's
ruin this
okay.
podcast entirely.
You know what's funny, actually,
Oh, no.
that I realized about that is I think I did tell it as apartment, and I don't know if that's what it was in the story or not. But
It was in my version.
yeah, okay, so I probably, for
Yeah.
that same reason. The apartment that I was imagining the entire time, because the story took place in Seattle, at least the version of it that I told, and I spent a couple of years going back and forth to Seattle when I was in a long-term relationship with my now wife, and I could only imagine that apartment as like the one apartment I've spent lots of time in Seattle. I 100% just imagined it as her old apartment in Seattle, which was a really weird
From the
like,
time you left a poo there.
I mean, I couldn't help but to just like insert myself into that like brain map. I mean,
You know
I
what's-
guess I was trying to make my dreams
in
come true.
my mind, it was for some reason in a very lavish modernist house, like from the movie Ex Machina or something, because
Right,
I
yeah.
imagined
Oh,
the door that
weird.
was closing and
Interesting.
locking being a very wide paneled glass door, so that when it
Oh,
closes
weird.
and latches with a very
Oh,
expensive
you
lock,
can still see.
you could look
The
in.
camera can do a snap
Yeah,
zoom.
and just see like through slightly frosted glass, like
Yeah.
your poo sitting there, and go, "Oh no!" And then the lock is incredibly expensive,
Yeah.
and you can't get in. That's like my feature film nice version of this
Yeah,
story,
yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
where you look back in and there's like a huge kitchen with a nice gas range on a big, huge like kitchen island. quartz countertop or whatever, and then
Right,
a
for
poo
sure.
on it
Yeah.
next to a note on a nice piece of paper that said, "I love staying here."
Yeah. That
What's
is,
for Snopes the movie that is like Twilight Zone the
Oh my
movie,
God,
directed
Snopes the
by
movie.
Alandis.
man, Snopes the movie. That is that. I think I feel like we're like
Outlandish.
5 to 10 years too late for Snopes the movie. You know, when the internet was like still at the point when it was dominating the world, but wasn't yet 100% completely ubiquitous and just an
Yeah.
everyday mundane part of everyone's life. Weird websites would get like book deals and movie deals, and I feel like Snopes the movie was a definite like 2006 era
Oh, yeah.
alternate past that just didn't come to be. I'm trying to think of examples of the thing, like the Onion movie. Remember when the Onion made a movie?
I don't remember
the
that.
more likely thing for Snopes would have been that like Ziff Davis TV would have Snopes the TV show with a wacky host who's like, we're gonna, and it was like their
Yeah.
version of MythBusters but boring because they actually just talked about things.
Yeah.
But Snopes the
They
movie,
they just tell you all the outrageous things are not true. Actually,
Snopes the movie in the style of the Twilight Zone movie is what I was picturing though, which would be probably closer to what the Onion the movie was or something, where you all of these stupid urban legends get heavily produced and dramatized starring major actors.
They're all here. Hook guy under the car
Oh.
teams up with Pooh Girl.
God, the problem with Snopes the movie is if it was Twilight Zone the movie, it would actually be mired in tragedy that itself became
Yeah.
urban legends that
yeah.
had to get covered on Snopes that were then put into Snopes the movie too.
What? Wait, hold on.
To the Twilight Zone movie, like
Yeah.
John Landis got himself in some really hot shit, like not hot water, but like the other kind, like bad. He had himself.
Oh, that's why you
somebody-
said directed by A. Land.
Oh yeah, no, I was privately
You were
dying over here.
referencing-
I didn't
Yeah.
want to
Oh,
interrupt
God,
the
I
flow of
didn't
conversation, but I was.
understand.
yeah.
I was
John
fucking
Landis
destroyed by that.
directed a bunch of the Twilight Zone movie,
What were we talking about?
a
You
Pooh
were-
story.
You were about to read something, right?
Oh yeah. So here's a story that this reader swears is verifiably true. He says, so, on a cruise one day, after indulging in a few too many drinks and oysters, he hideously clogged his cabin's toilet. After multiple attempts to unblock and flush the monstrosity, he admitted defeat and went out in search of help. He found a cleaning lady and tried to explain to her the problem. Unfortunately, his native language was Swedish, so all he was able to communicate was, "Come and look at this." He let her into the cabin's bathroom, pointed at the toilet, and depressed the handle. The blocked toilet, of course, flushed perfectly, leaving him with the unenviable task of somehow explaining to the nonplussed cleaning lady that he wasn't simply proud of what he had just achieved. Thought you'd get a kick out of this. A check of Snopes doesn't raise any immediate flags, so I think it's safe to share. Cheers, Henry, Bristol, UK.
That story is 100% believable. As
Oh, yeah.
not, that story is not
It's not-
legendary enough
right.
at all
No.
to make it onto Snopes, but it's very good. The only thing you would say is, "Come look at this," and then just look at my big poo. Now, okay, you've seen it. I'll
It's
flush
gonna
it
go
away.
away now. I did it.
So to confirm, that is in fact the dream from Twin Peaks,
Yeah, that's
Oh, yeah.
that's true. Yeah, except the
including
in this-
trying to speak in Swedish to someone and
Right.
being unable
Right.
to communicate
Well,
other than
no,
them
in this
assuming
case,
you want to
yeah.
look at their poo.
Yeah.
I think in this case, in Twin Peaks, I think the perspective character would be the sort of cleaning person.
Yes.
Who would come in and this man would be like gesturing and sort of speaking in a language that cannot be understood by the audience.
Right,
or
and then you would
assumed
just
to
hear,
be-
"Come look at this."
Yeah.
And then he's like
Look
pointing
at
in the
this.
toilet and like going, do you understand? And like what he's trying to communicate is, you understand what's happening, but what you see is I'm smiling and looking at you and then looking back at the poo and then flushing it and just going, "Okay," and walking away.
Yeah.
From either perspective, that story is really funny. That's very good.
Yep. I believe the truth of this. It's my dream. It's my dream that this story is true.
And you followed it to its conclusion
And
of it's real.
Yep, exactly. Well, do you guys want to do a question?
Yeah.
So this is actually something that I don't know. I don't really think we can address this very much on this podcast, but I wanted to mention it because of something that was surprising to me.
Okay.
So Brandon Rotkull writes in and says simply, "When is Dishonored Hoistmas?" So this question is a reference to a sort of running gag from our video game podcast, Idle Thumbs, which there's this notion of dishonored holidays that we have for reasons that are too stupid to even attempt to explain. But the reason that it was notable to me is because when I opened up this email in Gmail, I saw something that I've never seen before, which is the email, and it says, Brendan Rotkel to questions@importantiftrue.com. When is Dishonored Hoistmas? And that's the entire email. And then there's 3 buttons that Gmail is giving me.
Oh, right.
That
this
say...
This is the Gmail feature that can say things like, yeah, that sounds great, or I've signed it, it's attached, or whatever.
Yeah, I've never seen this happen before. Loading this question up is the first time I've ever gotten these buttons. And
You've never gotten suggestion buttons
no,
like that before? Oh, okay.
And the 3 options are, I don't know, next week, and I don't know, why? And I really, really enjoy that there's one definitive answer, which is next week. So which I think we can assume that is, in fact, the answer to this question.
That's the real answer.
The answer is Dishonored Hoistmas is next week. But
Google knows.
What's much more sinister is the subtle but really crucial distinction between I don't know and I don't know. Why?
God, I don't know why. I don't know, period.
I don't know why.
I don't know why is different. I think this is I don't know, dramatic pause.
Right.
A film director handles this scene very well so that when you say why it is fucking loaded.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Because, like...
that is a pregnant pause.
That guy then sort of stops, realizes that you know,
the implication
and is murdered.
Who wants to know?
Yeah,
basically,
exactly.
Is what that is.
Someone is about to get sniped or poisoned before they can get up from the table at this point. Or if they get up and manage to leave the mall food court, it was tense as fuck, and they're surprised they got out alive.
The camera followed them the entire way from the front.
They asked the wrong person.
You see them.
How do you know about Dishonored Dishonored Hoistmas?
The camera tracks them, camera going backwards, looking into their face, and behind them you see the person who asked why
slowly go out of focus
as they don't break their gaze for a full 30 seconds as the shot continues.
Oh, man. Yeah. They should not have asked when Dishonored Hoistmas was. That was, do not ask that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's next week.
It's next week. I just need to know why you're asking.
It's very Google automatically providing a definitive answer for a holiday that doesn't exist. For a double-stacked holiday that doesn't exist. Not only does a Hoistmas not exist, Dishonored Hoistmas definitely does not exist, but then alternatively it proposes that maybe this is part of an elaborate 70s conspiracy thriller plot. Yeah. Very good. Thanks, Google.
Now it occurs to me that now that I've seen that, this must have been an update that I only recently just got on my phone, because now I'm realizing they're on all of the emails in my Gmail. I don't use the Gmail app for my regular mail. I just use the iPhone one.
The website has been offering this feature for a long time.
Oh, then I have it turned off or something, or I never enabled it. I don't know, but I've never in my entire life seen this until literally this morning.
It's good that this time it's feeding you storylines, though, instead of just...
Well, so I was going to say, actually, this isn't an email that I prepped, but I'm realizing now that it's what you just said leads directly into this email from Brendan Marshall, who writes, "Dear IFT," that is, by the way, a common misacronym that Jake, you have made on numerous occasions as well, which is abbreviating this show as IFT.
I try to always call it IIT because that's what I always think about because of the Illinois Institute of Technology.
Whose
fight song I endorsed.
Anyway, Brendan Marshall says, "Dear IFT, I'm disturbed by the idea that we might be living in a computer simulation. Would the privacy of people in simulated worlds be respected by their non-simulated overlords? We don't seem to extend that courtesy to the long dead. Woe to the ancestral pervert who left any trace of their secret kinkiness. I'm mostly concerned that posterity will see me carrying on stream of consciousness conversations with myself in funny voices. Asking for a friend, Brendan, in Perth, Western Australia." I wonder if this makes any difference if we're living in a computer simulation or not, because increasingly it seems that we're simply living in Google's simulation of our world anyway.
I think that we're going to be the master copy, and we're feeding enough information into it willingly that a simulation will exist somewhere else, but we're going to be the gods on the outside. Except that we're not. We're just going to be pathetic organic meat sacks that die and then copies of us that really like brands are going to exist inside of a simulation.
When you say copies of us who really like brands, what distinguishes that from us?
Well, I mean, we all really like...
What makes that materially different than saying copies of us?
Fair enough.
How long until the...
I don't know. Why?
How long until the Google... How long until the Google auto replies
I don't know.
start being sponsored?
Oh, yeah.
Like at what point, at what point are those going to end up being...
Well, I felt the most surreal aspect of that is that it, in some ways it almost is just Google talking to you. Because it's really just saying, what do you want to say? But really, that what it's saying is, I've read this email. I know how you would respond because that's how I would respond. So, haha, very funny. All it needs to do is choose one of those, and then it's just reading your shit and responding to you.
I wonder how optimized those questions are going to get over time. Like, it's funny to think about those things in terms of like, we've all worked on computer games that have interactive conversations in them, where one of the things you do when you author that stuff is try to figure out what are the things that a person playing this video game inside of this fake conversation that we're writing would conceivably want to say.
Yeah.
And your goal is sort of give the person playing the video game enough options that sort of cover the possible emotional space that they don't feel like you're leaving something out. That they're like, okay, the entire possible range of things I could want to say are encapsulated in these 4 or 5 things.
Well, yeah, you don't need them to say the entire range of things I'll say. You just need them to say the thing I feel like saying is basically represented.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes. So,
are you relating that to Google's responses?
Yeah, just is Google going to end up getting so optimized with this? Their goal
Google,
must
the
be
greatest game designer.
Yeah, their goal with this must be that their algorithms will be perfected to the point that you can respond to a wide swath of emails by just pressing one of their 4 buttons, and at that point, we are unneeded.
Yeah, we are literally just the monkey in the cage at that point.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I just loaded up out of curiosity the dreams question to see what Google wants to respond.
And it's like
to
they're a movie.
What?
It is your brain trying to tell you something, or it is symbolism that you should.
Right. No, it's very different than that. It goes down a very different path. So he has this whole question about dreams and what do they mean and is he predicting the future and so on. And the 2 choices Google offers are, what do you think? And I don't know what you're talking about. So, I mean,
I wonder though if
they're
Google
falling back basically on the psychotherapist bag of tricks, right? It's just, I mean, that always works if you sort of just say, well, what do you think about this?
Right.
It's basically like...
it's Eliza, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. The
or Dr. Spatzo, if depending on your flavor of preferred old.
But if you grew up with a Mac or a PC,
no, if you grew up with a Sound Blaster card or the generic one, Dr. Spatzo is the Sound Blaster white label Eliza.
I didn't actually know that Dr. Spatzo was a derivative of Eliza. You should explain what those things are.
Eliza is an old text-based like AI that sort of pretended to be a psychologist or someone that would sort of, or a therapist or something, where it just in text would say, tell me about your problems. And then you could type into the text prompt what your problem was. And then it would say, how does that make you feel? Like it, or how does, then it would try to pick a noun out of it and make you feel, or what do you think about a thing that it would try maybe to figure out as a name or something? If you say my brother, blah, blah, blah. And its goal was to do what you're saying of be sort of the always questioning sounding board that would try to just rephrase questions to get you to deep dive into your own issues without it having to actually be a very smart AI. And then when Creative Labs made the Sound Blaster, which was one of the first really heavily waveform-based sound cards for computers, like it could do things other than just sort of do complicated tone simulation to sound like music. It could actually play back sounds and do text-to-speech, and it was the sort of all-singing, all-dancing sound card. It came with a version of Eliza called Dr. Spatzo, SB for Sound Blaster, 8zo for making it sound like a psychologist name, I guess.
Wait, surely it stood for something. Like AI stands for artificial intelligence.
I don't think so. I don't think so, Chris. I don't believe
keep
that.
Talking. I'm going to look up Dr.
You're probably
Spatzo.
right. It probably stood for something long, but his name was Dr. Spatzo, and he was my good friend and helped me through some tough times.
Sound Blaster, artificial intelligent text-to-speech operator.
That's not what it stands for. Snopes.com. Let's see for sure. But yeah,
I only ever used Dr. Spatzo because you could type say whatever.
Yeah, he would
say
just say it. Yeah. Dr. Spatzo's initial prompt was to be Yeah, Dr. Spatzo can help you with many problems, including I want my computer to swear and then to laugh at it. But it would always try at first to he would say, "Hello, I am Dr. Spatzer. Tell me about your problems." And then you would say motherfucker, and it would go. I think he'd get cheeky about swearing, but if you sort of just phonetically spelled it out, you could get him to say
you
it.
had to phonetically spell a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
Motherfucker. Should we take a break?
Yes.
I don't know why.
He knows about Dishonored Hoistmas.
This episode of Important If True is brought to you by Quip, electric toothbrushes sent to your home with brush head refills, so your bristles are always new, recently replaced. They've got that brand new, good bristle, frayed texture that gets all the plaque off your teeth. If you go to tryquip.com/thumbs, you can get $10 off your first brush head refill, and those plans start at only $5 per refill anyway, so you're all set there. I, days ago, got my Quip brush head refill.
Nice.
And it felt very luxurious to swap out that brush head. You swap out it comes with a new battery. I got the one that comes with a new tube of toothpaste. Really, the thing that's nice about their toothpaste is they send you both the 3-month-long, just full big tube of toothpaste, but they also always toss in a little travel-sized one that's under the TSA 4.3 ounce limit or whatever, so you can take So you've always got a really nice little tube of travel toothpaste, just a little touch, Quip touch.
Gross.
Yeah. But if you go to tryquip.com/thumbs, you can get one of these nice, elegant electric toothbrushes sent to your home. You can sign up for that refill plan, get $10 off your first refill, and every 3 months you've got that new brush head with those frayed bristles. As we learned from a reader who sent us a true science facts, you want those new brush heads because their bristles are still frayed in the good way that gets that plaque off your teeth.
Eventually the bristles brush themselves.
Yeah, eventually the bristles will brush themselves against your teeth into smooth, terrible cylinders that are worthless. Yeah.
Yeah.
This will keep your brushes fresh and frayed. Tryquip.com/thumbs.
Hey, guys.
Hi, Jake. I dreamt you would come back to this show.
I feel like talking about dumb garbage on the internet, so I'm here.
Jake, I know you're very excited about following up our
I am
discussions.
Well, so after talking about Google being able to provide some sort of assistance to you by helping you answer your email, and Dr. Spatzo or Eliza helping you with your problems, I feel like we would be not doing our job correctly if we didn't talk about the robotic priest that has shown up in the news recently. Sorry, I called it a robotic priest. It's a robot priest. It's not robotic. It is just
an actual robot.
It is a robot. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a church in Wittenberg, Germany that has unveiled what it calls a robot priest to celebrate the 500th anniversary of
the Protestant Reformation.
The Protestant Reformation, yeah.
The robot is called Bless You 2, which is BLESSU-2, and it's got a touch screen like an ATM or something, but it's built into the chest of just a straight-up hilarious robot.
It's like a full-on, Lost in Space 1950s
It's got
robot.
a little, LED light grid to make its mouth animated. It has eyebrows that can look sad, neutral, or angry. It can look angry.
Yeah.
And it can raise and lower its hands, and then it can also blast light out of its hands when it blesses you. It speaks 5 languages. You can go to it and, ask if you want a blessing in English, French, or German, or whatever, and which
male, female voice.
Yeah, male or female voice, what blessing you want, and then it will just go
It makes really loud
as
servo
its
noises.
hands slowly raise, and then it will just say,
and then
may the Lord's face shine upon you, as light blasts from
erupts.
its hands, and then it just goes amen, and then says, would you like to print or receive another blessing? I love it. It's I mean, the reason that they did it is legitimately interesting, which is sort of what is the purpose of receiving a blessing in religion? Is it about you? Is it about them? It actually feels very similar to what I think the experiments with Eliza were talking about sort of how much of this is actually meaningful in your brain.
Right.
But the way that they went about it is with is incredible and slightly scandalous.
There's no way to communicate how essential it is to just watch the video of this thing. Like, we can't, on an audio podcast, we can't really communicate how good the total effect of this thing is.
Anyone who's designing ATMs or grocery store checkout machines, look at this robot priest. Look to the church for how to make a responsive touchscreen that is quick.
The church will show you the way.
Read Jake's review of this priest in Wired.com.
Yeah, I'm going to do an unboxing and user experience video of this priest.
I mean, it's not a priest, right? It hasn't been ordained. I mean, it's a robot. It's
ordained.
A robot pretender. I mean,
would you like me to ordain myself? And then it will just quickly go through an online church, and then I can marry you now.
Yeah, it can update its firmware to give itself additional ecclesiastical capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When I searched for robot priest over the break, just to sort of see what the deal with this was,
Google said, "I don't know why."
I found the first two articles I found were one from the Catholic Herald saying, "The Protestant robot priest shows us one thing: the priesthood cannot be replaced. The priesthood founded by Christ is forever until he comes again."
And then tell that to auto workers.
The immediate next thing I found. So that was like, the priesthood is forever. It will never go away. The next article I found, the headline is, "This robot priest heralds Christianity's death in Europe." So definitely the takes are out in full force when it comes to religious commentary on this robot priest.
Here's the thing, though. If we're talking about, like, this robot could never replace the job of a human priest, you know, that can sort of read the scripture and pass it on to people in a meaningful way, and you know, okay, here's the taste test, right? If you sent a regular-ass human priest and this robot back in time, I want to know how many followers that robot would have after a single fucking day versus the just guy in another black robe. I think it would be the robot
the amount of insane war that would erupt from that.
Oh man,
there would be that. Okay, weird. God, that has no bearing on any of its actual ramifications right now. But the idea of just sending literally this priest robot with its iPad that can bless you in 5 different languages back in time, and what the hell would happen?
And probably interpret your letters with 3 responses as well.
Yeah.
But
Well, actually, let's see what Google thinks about this, because someone did send us this email. Sam Sheldon sent in a link to this, and Google's 3 responses to the robot priest are, "What is this? What? Love it."
Good.
Which I think is very much in keeping with the
As far as even the people who made this, their awareness of all of the issues that could go around it, I was actually really impressed and also amused with it. Where they're like, "There's no way this could replace a human priest. Of course not. Ha ha. There's also no way that this would solve our problem of a mass shortage of priests and how there aren't enough priests to fill all of our regional churches in Europe." Like, I thought it was interesting and admirable the way that they sort of very passively were like, there is also a legitimate, tangible problem. Not saying that robots need to solve it, but like, the reason that people are up in arms is probably, I don't know. I don't want to. I'm absolutely uneducated. I'm not educated enough to have any real take on that. But yeah, the church that made the robot seems to be aware of all these issues, and they kind of did it as a piece of almost.
You say the robot is aware of these issues?
No, the church that made the robot. The robot is also like. Do you want blessings or statistics about declining priesthood? I mean, that would further outrageously cement this as a piece of sort of modern installation art. But it seems like the reason that the church built it was they seemed very aware of all of the good and bad and interesting and hilarious facets of this robot, and I really respect it.
I mean, in terms of your question about whether this could replace a priest, and Nick's postulation about sending it back 500 years to the time of the Reformation and letting it loose, I think, in line with my musings several episodes ago about King Arthur and a Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court situation, I think one thing you have to keep in mind with this is you'd be sending it back with a finite power source that could not be replenished. So you'd have this situation where it would immediately amass a following,
and
then
die, and people would be waiting for his resurrection.
That is it's just entirely faith. Oh, that's crazy.
Once electricity is invented, he's coming back.
Yeah, what if that thing was possible? if that thing went
Yeah.
back in time, performed surprising miracles for like 2 days, then its car battery ran out,
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
it was
yeah.
actually preserved.
Oh my God.
wrapped
The
in a
Book of
shroud.
Bless You too.
That
is
would be
just-
the first piece of electronics ever created.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Humanity would just be sitting around
Well,
waiting.
Okay, but no, it wouldn't be waiting though, because this would be the Terminator 2 situation of, oh, we have this thing, we can reverse engineer it now. We've like jumped forward 100 years past where we should be right now because
Totally, except that would always for the rest of history be the first usage of electricity and
Right.
electronics in the history of humanity.
It would be deified,
that would be
for
such
sure.
a loaded
Right, 'cause
thing to
the-
insert
the
into
pieces-
the development
yeah.
of technology.
Yeah, the pieces of it that are not the touchscreen iPad, like the servo motors and the parts that are just sort of replicating simple movements, those pieces would be taken apart and documented heavily by monks and put into weird illuminated manuscripts before Da Vinci, before anything else, and would probably inform terrifying realities. But then eventually, if that thing was preserved and then was plugged in at the advent of electricity, like in the late 1800s
Yeah,
or whatever,
that would determine
it would
standards
be-
for like outlet types worldwide. Like
right, where people are like, oh, I think that we don't want to fry this thing, but we might be able to turn it back on for the first time in 2,000 years or whatever. And then
no,
it
it
just
would
goes,
be it's a couple hundred years, but yeah.
when does it get sent back in time?
To
I
the
mean-
time of the Reformation, 500 years ago, right? Isn't that the point?
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well,
Was that,
yeah.
was that specifically what you were saying?
yeah, but yeah.
I thought that it was just
I
any
think-
time in history when it could compete with any other religious.
Well, it's
Right.
explicitly a
I mean, yeah.
Reformation. It's explicitly a Protestant priest,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's to celebrate the 500th anniversary of the Reformation.
That's
so
fair
I feel-
enough.
I
But
felt like that
even-
was the,
even-
It's sort of irrelevant to the
Yeah,
to-
I don't.
to
It
the-
doesn't matter
to
when it
the
gets sent back in
thought.
time, but it's sent back in time to pre-electricity,
Yeah.
pre
Yeah.
a lot of other things. But then plugging it back in would also be equally baffling because even then it would feel like a complete marvel, but a tangible one.
it would also be speaking versions of these languages that are more modern than the
Oh, yeah,
people
it
who.
wouldn't-
It would be speaking a weird, like, off version of your language that you could probably understand, but it would be.
Well,
God, I
they
hadn't
would
thought
sound
about it in
weird to
terms
you.
specifically of the Protestant Reformation because it would be shocking as all heck if that thing showed up right around the time of the Protestant Reformation.
We have this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because it would be giving religious blessings in 5 common non-high languages. A robot that
Oh,
showed up
that's
and was
true.
just like
Wasn't speaking Latin.
and you're like,
Yeah.
that's actually that. I mean, that's probably part of what they're doing with this, but that would be really weird. I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm not enough of a historian, let alone a religious historian, let alone a Christian religious historian, to understand the entire ramifications of that. But a weird automaton priest that would give some of the most common Christian blessings in your own spoken language instead of Latin would actually be. This thing would just get beat to shit. This
Yeah,
would not
no,
be.
I-
This would not be
no,
preserved. This
yeah,
would-
I think
would say you'd have to-
basically it would
You'd have
get
to send it way earlier
This
for it
would
to be
actually
sent to the
wonderful
four
enough.
corners.
This
and,
would
and
probably
just kind of-
destroy the
yeah.
Reformation, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's actually
because
true.
this would just be Satan is coming here, and like this just
Yeah.
the Catholic
Yeah,
Church
no,
would
no.
be like, okay, we were right. You people are fucked
Yeah,
up.
yeah, no.
Latin only. Weird it. This thing is the devil.
You have to send this thing back far enough in time that the Catholic Church is not a force. That like Christianity is in its earliest days, and this thing basically seems like the
Okay.
third coming.
That
because,
would-
because
that
if
would-
you, if, it would then who knows what history is. But if you send it to the Reformation,
It would be worse. It would definitely militarize Christianity way faster
I know.
than already happened. If you had a fucking metal priest that just is dunked into.
but it would speak
like, early
Spanish and stuff. No one would know what it was doing. That would actually be crazy because if you send it back to a time before those languages were really formed, no one would know what it was doing, and it would just be a weird amorphous robot. And then you would plug it in thousands of years later, and it's just speaking French and giving Protestant blessings.
That's true. It would go from a time when it would speak things that people would have no way to write down, so they wouldn't be able to record. No one in like the 19th century would even know what it had said originally, other than it had said something in an unknown tongue. And then when they plug it in, and it's just speaking the modern normal form of their language.
Right.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, if only that robot could time travel like a Terminator.
Man, should we do some endorsements?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I have a movie that I want to endorse that I was brought to mind by some news this week, which is that Terry Gilliam, the film director and member of Monty Python, announced yesterday that he has completed, I guess, principal photography on his 2 decades in development film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, this is a project that Terry Gilliam, who is the director of Brazil and Time Bandits and 12 Monkeys?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, yeah. And again, longtime member of Monty Python. He has been trying to make this Don Quixote movie for decades, and notably, the most notable attempt to film it began in 1998, I believe, or thereabouts, or he started development in 1998 maybe, and was just a disaster of a production, beset by like natural disasters and funding problems and health problems with the actor playing Don Quixote. Just every insurance company issues, just every problem you could think of. And fortunately, instead of those disasters just sort of sinking the project and fading away into nothing, they were documented extensively by a documentary film crew that I believe was the same. They had previously done a sort of just general behind-the-scenes documentary on one of Gilliam's previous movies, I think 12 Monkeys.
I don't think it was 12 Monkeys because this film came out on the DVD of 12 Monkeys.
It did not.
Really?
There was a documentary team hired to do a documentary of 12 Monkeys, and then that same crew, Gilliam liked working with them enough that he hired them to document his next movie, because that movie Lost in La Mancha opens with a history of Terry Gilliam's relationship with the business world of Hollywood, which included it was like a little Monty Python animation of planting a small, modest seed in the ground and getting huge returns. And the two examples were 12 Monkeys and Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So it was like, and that's why people were finally willing to take a risk on this outrageous movie. And then it ate all of the shit. But it was the documentary crew from 12 Monkeys that was filming this production.
Yeah.
So they had a featurette on 12 Monkeys that was very similar. And then they did this as a standalone release.
So the movie that I am endorsing is called Lost in La Mancha, and it is a feature-length documentary that is the story of this disastrous film shoot, and it is just a gripping and great and sort of hilarious and heartbreaking picture of, I guess, sort of just a collapsing artistic endeavor. And it's really interesting and good and has a great capstone to it, which is that this movie that Gilliam has been trying to make for decades and has gone through just a series of different casts and attempts has actually been filmed and will almost certainly come out, assuming all of his film doesn't get destroyed in a house fire or something.
Yep.
And so it's called Lost in La Mancha, and I'll have links to it in our episode notes.
Nick is checking on his phone to see if he's about to take me to school or not. I don't know if that information will be revealed or not right now, but if one of the two of us should or has taken the other to school about the history of this movie, please let us know.
Well, I mean, I know.
I think I'm thinking of actually. I think I am thinking of the 12 Monkeys documentary, which was called The Hamster Factory or something like that. Like something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. But this one is definitely
included some Quixote stuff. But yeah.
Okay.
This one is definitely a full-length thing that is its own movie and can be found on DVD and Amazon streaming and places like that. So we'll link it. Anyway, that's me. That went on a little long. Sorry about that. Jake, what do you have?
Me. I would like to endorse a website called Art of the Title. It's a website that either you know about and this is the oldest recommendation in the world at this point, or you don't know about it and you will find this website very interesting and good if you're a cool person. Art of the Title is a website that is
So if you don't like this website, Jake thinks you're not cool.
Yeah. I think there's probably a high crossover between people who like this podcast and people who would be interested in this website.
Probably true.
Art of the Title is a website dedicated entirely to movie and TV title sequences. So it is not. It started off as and continues to be a huge library of opening and closing credit sequences from TV shows and movies throughout history. So if you want to go watch the one from Seven or like an old 70s TV show opening or like the really expensive closing credits to a new Marvel movie, those are all on there. But they expanded the site over time to also include interviews and behind the scenes with motion graphic designers and title designers and cinematographers responsible for all of these things. So they have these really pristine HD copies of opening credit sequences from films, and often you can also see like the storyboards and concept paintings and other things like that. Like I really I have mixed feelings about the movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the Edgar Wright movie, but I love the opening title sequence that was done by a motion graphics company called Shinola, and it's this like combination. It looks like the sort of noise and film leader that you'd see at the beginning of a skateboarding video or something, or just of old films, but it's all actually done by hand painting a bunch of animation frames on glass, shooting them with a camera, and then running, and then like sort of degrading it the way that the film leader is degraded, and going and reading that article and seeing their process and all of the different animation frames and the different attempts that they did to get to this look. Like, I find that stuff really fascinating. It's just, it's a piece of filmmaking and of sort of visual media that you might wonder, like, where do these even come from? And that website not only lets you look at a ton of them, but get really good stories behind that stuff.
Cool.
And so that is, I think it's just artofthetitle.com.
Nice.
Cool.
Nick.
I'll keep mine relatively short. I'm going to endorse the comedian Tig Notaro.
Oh,
say,
nice.
Yeah,
Were you at Colossal Cluster Fest
I was at
this weekend?
Colossal Cluster Fest this weekend, which was a comedy festival here, and she was by far the most interesting of like an entire day's worth of comedy that I saw. She got recommended by Louis C.K. at one point or another, but she's done a lot of stuff since. And
well, was that I mean, I know her from when she discussed like getting her cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
Was that the same one you're talking about?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So I think, a lot of people have seen that, but her stuff since is not specifically just about her life. She's just a really good comedian. She did this bit that I don't mind spoiling because I don't think it's going to ever show up on anything, that was just incredible, where at the very end of the set, she, there's a festival atmosphere, and, there were like occasionally bands that were playing in different areas. And so she started to announce, as she was going off, as you do, like when you've got multiple comedians back to back, like, within 15-minute sets, they say, okay, I'd like to bring on the next performer. But she was the last of this block, and she said, all right, I've got a very special guest for you tonight, actually. It's like one of my favorite artists. They're here in town touring, the Indigo Girls. And everyone's like, oh, shit, oh, fuck, oh, this is cool. And she walks off stage, and just like nobody came on. And then she finally sadly walked back to the microphone and said, okay, the Indigo Girls aren't here. But what if they were? And then she just strung this together for 20 minutes. She walked off stage. Like, and every time she did it, she introduced them in a different way. Like, okay, I'm just kidding, the Indigo Girls. And then she would walk off stage and nothing. And it went on, and it got it got to the point where it was just like you didn't know what the hell was. And then she would talk to the crowd. She's like, "Sir, I saw you react. This is the 10th time. What the hell was going through your brain?" And he was like, "I thought they were here." She's like, "Well, you're the stupidest person in this fucking room then." Like, it just turned into this insane like mind game, and it went on so long, like just forever. It was like one of the like most interesting like subversive pieces like crowd work I've ever. It was so good. Anyway, she's very good, and I would recommend you.
Do you have any particular sort of specials or anything?
No, I wish I did. I would just say look her up and find anything you can.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Tig Notaro.
Yeah.
We'll find.
She's got a Netflix special, I'm sure.
Find something for me, and I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's our show. Thanks for joining us on Important If True. You can find our website at importantiftrue.com, which has links to everywhere else you can find us on the internet. And you can ask us questions, send us email at questions@importantiftrue.com if there's anything you need our help with or consultation. And if you would like an ad-free version of this podcast, you can support our Patreon at patreon.com/idlethumbs. There are a number of other benefits and cool rewards on there, including the weird branching choose your own adventure that you don't get to choose, but that we will choose for you. Postcard story written by Nick Brecken and designed by Jake. And that's at patreon.com/idlethumbs. And I think that's it for us. We will be back next week. For Idle Thumbs, I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Goodbye.
Well, we're in that universe now. I wasn't expecting goodbye.
I know. Gotta keep you guessing.
That's how you say spicy.
I'm up to here with Nick's anti-science mentality. This is
Really?
outrageous. Every time this guy says anything about science, he's a fucking idiot, and he says how scared he is, and what an idiot. I mean, that's not verbatim, but it was like that
hilarious.
was basically his.
pretty close to verbatim.
Wow.